So today I'm heading up to Meriden, Connecticut to visit my buddy's shop, Levin. He's the guy that takes care of my lifts. Now in the back of his shop, he's doing some cleaning and rearranging. He has two cars, a 1974 BMW 2002 and a 1982 Audi Grand Coupe. Now both of those cars need to be removed and sold, and he's like, just get them out of here. So I'm gonna go up there, do some inspections. So we're packing up right now to see, number one, if I can help him sell it, and number two, if I really like it, hopefully I can buy it myself. So that and a whole lot more in this episode of Drive and Protect.
Wow.
With my inspection tools packed up, we headed north to Levin's lift shop. Upon arrival, my favorite puppy, Rizzy, was waiting for us. Now, you remember her from cleaning Levin's truck a few weeks ago. She's a gorgeous American Pit Bull Terrier, so sweet, so cute. Anyhow, once she was back inside and safe, I pulled the car up and then we walked in to see the cars.
You don't think Rust-Oleum would be better?
Rizzy, go see hi. Go see hi.
Go say hi.
What's up, buddy?
Hey, Larry. How you
Good
doing?
to see you, man.
Good to see you too.
Got some lifts here.
Yeah, welcome. This is my shop.
I see.
A little bit different layout. Yeah, all this stuff sat outside actually for a while.
I didn't even see this underneath here.
Yeah, I know. It's like I Spy. You can't even can't find.
Look how
half the
ironic
stuff.
this is. A power wash is sitting right next to it. It's like pointing towards it. It's
Yeah.
like, clean me, clean me.
Yeah, actually, it's a good placeholder for all our cleaning wash products. Yeah, right by the
cool.
hose and everything. So yeah, this is a 2002 series BMW.
Great steering wheel.
Yeah, this thing is cool. My dad and I picked up a couple of these. This is just a regular classic 2002. He has a TII as well. And actually, I learned to drive stick on this.
No kidding.
Yeah.
How long has it been sitting here?
Well, so we moved in here 5 years ago. It was outside for like a year and a half, so about 3.5 years.
All right, cool. Show me this one back here.
Yeah, so this is an Audi GT Coupe.
Ooh.
And it's funny, my dad found these as we were kind of organizing some stuff. So these are the inspiration for this car. My dad volunteered at a rally race. And he was a marshal, so he sat he was one of the guys that was like on the track as they're like flying by at like 100.
Yeah.
And he almost got taken out by an Audi GT Coupe, the Quattro version. So he fell in love with the car, and he found this 7 years ago. And when he saw the body style, he immediately thought, oh, it must be the Quattro. So he bought it, and then we look underneath, and it's got no rear drive shaft. So it's a front-wheel drive Audi GT Coupe.
You know what they say, what doesn't kill you, you have to buy that.
Yeah, exactly.
Does the other tires, they hold air?
This one went flat overnight, but this one holds air. So.
What do you think, Chris? What do you think? What are you thinking? Yeah, these are pretty cool.
Yeah, it's only 2 out of probably 12 cars that I spied around this entire lot.
One of my favorite parts of finding a forgotten car is seeing where it lives and what has entombed it for all these years. Usually the tools, car parts, random treasures, and of course the stories are just as interesting as the car itself. To me, it's like finding a sunken ship without putting on a wetsuit. Oh, you're one of those guys, huh? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's right.
A little while later, we went outside and I toured all the snowmobiles and VW bugs in the backyard.
Awesome. Yeah, this is cool. This was actually a Corvair setup. They have the flat 6 in it, but no one's been able to identify, because I guess these particular dune buggies have specific makers.
If you happen to know the history or what this thing is, leave a comment below because I know Levin is trying to find out.
Audi, he has the title. The BMW, obviously you don't need them, but because they're so old.
On the other side of the lot, Levin wanted to show me another car he had locked up in a trailer.
Watch your eyes. Key to the city. Even get this up. Oh, there she is.
Holy jeez.
Yeah. So.
How long has it been sitting here?
In this truck, it's been here for 15 years. And that's, yeah, no exaggeration. Every part for this car is in here. The when my dad stored it, he rebuilt the transmission, had a GM tech rebuild the engine. Everything is rebuilt. I mean, obviously at this point, you need to kind of do an overhaul again.
Yeah, I would think so.
But yeah, no, everything just kind of sat. Unfortunately, his uncle passed away, who was helping him with the build. And he hasn't gone in this trailer in 15 years. He can't look at it. It's very...
Like emotional?
Very emotional for him.
Look at that.
Yeah, right?
How cool is
They
that?
do not make them like they used to.
Back inside, I met up with Levin's dad to hear about his love for these cars and what inspired him to buy them all those years ago. All right, now the BMW. Now, Levin gave me a little bit of the backstory, but
Yeah.
why is this here?
It's on my list of have-to-haves. My uncle raced one in Europe, and I love the car. They're just a lot of fun to drive. They made a big hit in the U.S. when they were here, and had to have it.
Yeah, interior's not too bad, but clearly this thing's been sitting outside a little bit. So it's on the rougher side, and obviously with the Audi and this one, I think you said you're at about 5-ish or so.
Yeah, it's a good starting point.
So I think with the amount of work that needs to get done here, I'm in the $2,500 range. How do you feel about that?
I'd feel a lot better about 3.
3?
Yep.
All right. Let's get them back to the shop. Let's say $3,000 bucks.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
With the deal now done, I ended up buying both cars for $3,000, so I was super stoked. $2,000 for the BMW and $1,000 for the Audi. Now, hopefully after a healthy cleaning and preservation, I can sell each for a profit. However, the super sweet deal I just got came, of course, with a contingency, and that is to get the cars out of the shop today, like right this second, as they're rearranging the garage space for some new machines, new tools, whatever. So we needed to clean everything up around them and get them loaded up on the trailers in the snow right now. The first to go was the 1974 BMW 2002, considered to be one of the most iconic BMW body lines ever, which was offered in 2 options in the United States. The single carb 2-liter single overhead cam producing 100 horsepower in the base model, which this one is right here, or the 2002 TII, which had the exact same engine but added mechanical fuel injection producing 130 horsepower. With the Beamer now loaded, Levin filled the tires on the GT, and check out how much dust came out of the hood when he closed it. Absolutely crazy. Anyhow, we pushed it to the garage door, and then Levin said, hey, wait a second, don't push it all the way out. My dad has another idea to quickly get her on the trailer.
Good mechanics are hard to come by. They really are.
Jordan. With the tarp on, we pulled it in front of the forklift, and then he put the front wheels on the trailer and then lifted from the rear to push it completely on the trailer. Pretty wild.
Great.
Perfect.
Send it. Straight. Yeah. Come up a little. Keep coming. Up, yeah. All right, in. All right, you're on. Strap.
Once you know it's cold and you're not doing anything.
Yeah. My cousin did that and threw a block right in the back of my truck. Nearly shattered the windshield.
Now, with everything loaded up, we headed back to the studio to remove both cars in the snow. It looks great under the cover. Now turn hard. A few days later, when Kevin and Jason arrived for our week-long detailing marathon for the Ferrari, the Tornado, the Datsun, the MG, and now this beast, we pushed her inside and inspected the overall condition, which was obviously rough, but salvageable. There was dirt and grime in every seam. It was under the wing, it was in the bumpers, and the paint was covered in mud from years of no washing, plus the snow-filled drive to the studio itself. This thing was a disaster. Likewise, the tires were dry rotted and not holding any air. Inside is completely dusty and a little bit of mold here and there because the electric windows were actually left down. That is a big problem I see with a lot of cars that are left, leaving the seats blackish, and there was just soot and grease, again, from obviously because he's in a workshop and he's grinding. So these things were a hot mess. First things first is we covered up the windows with plastic sheeting to minimize the water getting in the interior when we worked on the outside. Oh, I have so many things to say right now. It's so hard. It's just very challenging. Yeah. Next, we broke the lug nuts and removed the wheels.
There you go.
Step 2, of course, is to power wash the years of dirt off the Audi, so enjoy. For the paint, we added Boost anti-salt additive to Ammo Brute wheel soap for some extra kick, added water, and then mixed. Kevin then soaked the paint, allowing the chemicals to start their work. With the paint now soaking, Kevin repeated the process on the undercarriage, and we scrubbed everything we could get a brush on before rinsing again.
You run battery power to a motor that has.
Afterwards, we used compressed air to get a better idea of what needed to be fixed or replaced underneath the car. With the car back down, Kevin uses Brute in a water mixture in a spray bottle to clean the tight spots with his brush. The spray bottle helps flush out the junk pulled up by the brush, while I was washing the paint with a microfiber towel.
No, you can see all the tape lines.
Forget that again. That was break the fan belt off, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah, if you're catching a hook and making you pass out from the pain, okay, yeah, great.
Under the hood, Kevin and I used Ammo Plum to remove the black stains. Now, Plum is great for super baked-in junk like this. Same thing on the engine itself.
Mexican ambassador to Saudi Arabia or vice versa. Dark blue, gorgeous car. Just changed color after I buffed it for 28 hours without sleeping.
One of the best things about cleaning a car with your closest buddies is the stories you share during the detail. This by far is my favorite part of the process. Now check out the junk that came out of the engine compartment. Absolutely insane. Oh, hey now. Afterwards, Jason cleaned the wheel wells with Titan 12 degreaser, and the grease just slid off the suspension and body. Finally, Kevin gave the paint a final rinse before we all dried the surface, and it looked 1,000 times better already. While Jason was in front performing a test spot, Kevin removed the grills in the back to clean behind them before they're repainted later in this process. Okay, at this point we've washed and dried the car and tons of junk came off, but in front here, Jason is doing a test panel. Let's take a look. Let's see here. It actually looks really good, but what's going on with these scratches deep here?
Well, our test spot was with our DA wool pad Nuno Pure. We removed the oxidation very quickly and the topical car wash marks, but what you're looking at here is these sanding marks really, and they're not on the top of the surface. They're actually from the primer up. So what happens with this car, probably repainted at least once, maybe twice, but they scuff the primer, they put some new paint on top. Over time, this shrinks down. So we're actually looking at sanding marks that are subsurface. They're actually below. So if we, as a detailer, if we went after those, we'd be in trouble.
Okay, one of the best ways to understand shrinkage is, of course, to use a whiteboard. So we have the paint, we have the primer, and we have the metal. Now, as a detailer, we see these scratches, we want to go after them, but in this case, we can't really get them out because they're down below. And Jason's point is, hey, we have to understand what's going on here to realize that really the scratches that we're seeing are so down far inside the paint that we'd have to take it all the way down, rendering the paint useless. So let's back this out a little bit to understand sort of what's going on from a high level perspective. So we have primer. Primer is put on right here, the metal, right? And we want it to attach to the paint. So the paint and the primer are attached. We're going to talk about that in a second. Now, one of the characteristics of primer in this case is if you're sanding it down to make it contour perfectly to that panel in a body shop, let's say, over time, that the solvents in the primer are going to evaporate, making it much more dense. During that process, what happens is that those sanding marks, which are indicated here in this little analogy, are going to not necessarily rise to the surface. It's really that the primer itself is shrinking down. So if this was the scratch and this is the primer, you can't really see it until it shrinks down and then it sort of pops out. Another great example from Kevin is if you were making a brownie. So you mix the batter like this, it's really wet, it's smooth, it's got water in it and eggs and the whole 9 yards, right? You pour it into a pan. Let's just say for argument's sake, it's an inch thick, right? And it's perfectly flat. You stick it in the oven, i.e. the sun, meaning the Audi's been sitting out in the sun forever, all these years, it's going to shrink down, it's going to evaporate. The density is going to become a little bit thicker, right? Stronger rather. And then the top is going to have that brownie little crusty layer on it. Okay, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense here. In this case, this is going to evaporate and this perfectly smooth little thing, right? There is now going to have these little etches in it, which is the sanding marks that we originally put in. But at the same time, the primer is attached to the paint. That's the idea. So just like that, we'll take this away. The paint is also going to mimic. See how this, I tried to make it so this looks just like this. They're attached. So they're going to mimic each other. So it's like the earth underneath is shifting down. So that's what we're seeing. So we can clean this up a little bit, but once we kind of clean that up, we're still seeing the ones underneath. That's where my mind went like, oh, I can now understand what's really going on. Because the primer is attached to the paint, when this comes down over time, meaning it evaporates, and those sanding marks are exposed, that's what you're seeing. So that's kind of the detailing dilemma with those specific ones. Again, this is just a very narrow example, but it will make you think a little bit more like, is this a surface defect, above defect, or is it a defect that's occurring below? The inside, much like the outside, is a hot mess because the windows, again, were left down all these years. There's dust, dirt, grime, and what looks like sheetrock or something on the seats. I'm not 100% sure, but whatever it is, it needs to go. Door jambs look like something out of a horror movie. Those are really bad for some reason. The back seats were dirty for sure, but absolutely amazing. Look at the design and sort of the, I don't know, pseudo bucket seat setup. It's very, very cool in the back seat. The next step after the paint polish was to remove the window plastic and pull everything out and start the preliminary vacuum. When you're vacuuming, it can be super helpful to use a carpet brush to stir up the dirt to the surface for better cleaning, especially on medium to thick pile. The brush I'm using here is what's called a dual density carpet brush. Now inside there are red stiff nylon bristles. In the middle part you can see they're red right there, and along the edges is boar hair. This will help sort of coax the dirt to the surface at the same time you're vacuuming it up. It just makes the vacuuming more efficient. Now, if it's really clogged up, compressed air can also be helpful as well, but at the same time, it makes a complete mess. So if you're going to use the compressed air technique, do it first so that the leather isn't clean and so on. While Kevin and I were working on the inside, Jason was on the 3-inch areas of the paint before respraying the lower portions of the rocker panel that have purposeful or aggressive orange peel purposely put in there to minimize the look of sandblasting while you're driving. Now, this technique is even common on new cars like GT3s. You can see that there's just like this orange peel purposely put in there so that when the tires kick up the rocks, most likely, it's not going to look horrible. If it was perfectly razor flat paint and you see these little rock chips, it would drive everybody nuts. Anyways, we were reinstalling or reapplying that so that the contrast between the white and the black looked really good before we go to sell the car. Now, this was done with masking tape and plastic sheets to keep the lines crisp and tight. Back inside, I was cleaning the dashboard and the center console with Ammo Lather interior cleaner, a microfiber towel, and a dual density interior brush. Now check out Kevin's 50/50 on the rear seat. Massive difference. We repeated that same exact process on the rest of the seats inside. Once again, in the back, Picasso Jason was laying a fresh coat of black on all the faded areas, and it really brought that contrast I mentioned earlier alive when the car started to pop now. For the seats, I used lather and the Ammo steam machine with the seats still inside the car. Again, the bolts were just rusted and just not cooperating. It was kind of a huge pain in the butt, but the material desperately needed some love. Having the windows down for that many years is devastating to the inside of any car. Now check this out, the passenger side door had what appeared to be some sort of suntan lotion stains in white. It's very common, especially in the summertime, but the cleaner plus the heat from the steam, that's the key there, removed it easily. While our very own Bob Ross was still working in the back of the car, we steamed the rugs to remove the mildew smell from the carpets. For the door jambs, Kevin used Ammo Plum wheel cleaner and a green dish scrub pad due to the severity of the condition. If you look closely at the door jamb, you can see this car was actually painted in white at some point in its life due to the overspray. Looks like it may have been gray originally, I'm not exactly sure, and why there is extreme shrinkage as we discussed earlier in the paint. With the grates painted white, Jason removed the tape and then it just cleaned them right up, especially important before sale. The thing looks absolutely fantastic. It's sort of like a real estate agent staging a home prior to it going on the market. Every little bit counts when you're sort of painting a picture of what it might look like if they owned it in someone's head. A few months back, I shot a video about the framing of a vehicle and the armpits of the car, which are, of course, the door jambs. These tend to be the most overlooked area of the car, but the place I look to first when inspecting a vehicle for purchase. So cleaning them well now, especially if you're planning on selling your car, can be a helpful move. Next up, Kevin focused on the wheels with Ammo Plum, a wheel brush, and a scrub pad. Now, full disclosure, Kevin is a madman and spent a crazy amount of time on them, but I do think these were sort of like borderline repaint worthy, but whatever. Nonetheless, they looked as good as they could look without a full respray. The before and after was amazing. Kevin is insane. Feel a little steel wool.
I got pushed it on the bottom, twist that thing. Yeah, right there.
Next, I cleaned the floor mats with Titan 12 degreaser and a scrub pad while Jason was working on the trim and Kevin continued scrubbing the wheels. Working as a team is so much fun when you have a disaster car like this, especially with your closest buddies. It's a moment that you remember for a very long time, so very grateful to have them helping. We also had to zip tie a few bumpers and exhaust components and things like that so they didn't drag on the ground as we pushed the car around, in and out. Again, this is not ideal, but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. Now, with the front spoiler back on, Jason lightly sanded with 1000 grit before repainting the scuffed up area. In the back, I applied Ammo Frame Pro to the battered bumper for some new life. I did the same thing on the front, and the 50/50 really shows just how much contrast it can create even on old trim pieces. As we were rounding third, Kevin focused on the windows, which were really bad. So we used 4/0 steel wool on the glass to lift the baked on grind. Now, obviously this needs to be super gentle when you're doing it, but it can be really helpful in these disaster situations. Can you click and go? As you can see here on the inside of the glass, you can also use an interior brush, especially on the edges and corners, to dislodge the dirt so that it doesn't streak later on when you're wiping your towel and you just catch the edge of that corner. That's what causes a lot of these streaks. After just a few minutes of cleaning, look how much better the glass looks. Now, I always say there's not just one thing that changes the car completely. It's really about the culmination of all the little things like the trim, in this case the glass, the wheels, the door jambs, not just paint correction alone. Okay guys, we're on the inside of the car now. Kevin did all the glass, but look at this right here. This is the defroster line. Around here looks absolutely terrible. I'm not exactly sure why. Kevin came up with the idea of using 4/0 steel wool, and you can see if you go east to west on these lines, there you go, like this, it actually takes off this schmutz that we couldn't get before with just our normal cleaning technique. Now the idea is if you're going to use a razor blade, which we can do on all the other glass, you can't obviously do it here. You'll break the lines. When you're doing this, I also recommend not going north to south. You want to go east to west right along this little line. And surprisingly, it looks absolutely perfect. So we're going to do that on the rest of the window here, and it's going to look amazing when we're done. Now with the interior looking a lot better, I reinstalled the backseat bottom while the boys outside were installing the wheels. Finally, I added a light layer of Reflex Pro finishing wax, aka blush, for some added pop, then mud tire dressing, and the transformation was complete. Marie, who has a safety deposit box with money, 6 passports, and a gun? What movie? The only thing left to do is to find a new home for the GT. So I called my buddy Axel from Axel's Foreign Auto Parts, as he'd be able to help me find and fix the parts for the GT. And since I knew he already had a few hidden car collections himself, I thought this could be a good kill two birds with one stone type situation to get him to add the GT to his personal garage. So I visited the store in Danbury, Connecticut to ask if he could take a look at the car to help diagnose what needed to be done, all the while in the back of my mind hoping he would fall in love with it in the process. Sure enough, the next day Axel showed up with his flatbed and brought it back to his garage and immediately focused on the fuel delivery issue. Later in the week, I paid him a visit to see the progress and to see if my plan to have him fall in love with the car actually worked.
So first thing we found, there was no fuel. And this little item here, it's called a fuel distributor. It distributes the fuel to the fuel injectors. This is basically a sample of it, and this plunger inside was frozen solid.
So it's just not lifting, or that's not moving, so no fuel's getting in.
Correct.
Got it.
So we soaked it in some penetrant, cleaned it up, put it back together. It's now working,
Oh, good.
but we don't have a fuel pump.
Okay.
So we, in the back here is where the fuel pump's located.
Okay.
So there's the old one we took out of it, and the new one's underneath, which you can't see. It's tucked inside the car. So fuel pump's in.
So basically fuel pump is pushing it to this thing that was clogged. Now it's not clogged.
Correct.
Fuel's going in. Now
So
what?
Now we have fuel. We crank the motor. I can even, you want to hear it crank?
I would love to hear it crank.
And
All right, well this is good. Things are moving.
there's only one problem.
Okay.
Now we don't have any spark for the spark plugs.
Okay.
So it's either the distributor is bad or ignition control module in the car. We ordered the new parts. They should be here in a few days. We'll put them in, and I think that'll get us started.
Okay. This is good. All right, so this has life. It's not like seized. There's a
No.
future for this.
No, it looks like it might work. There's no brakes. Got to deal with that. That's another issue, but that should be.
Okay. So the big question is, I'm trying to hit a grand slam here. Do you have any interest in putting this in your collection? I know you got a bunch of cars back there. What do you think?
Well, what are you thinking for a number?
I would love to be around 4,200 on this. I understand there's a lot of work that needs to be done, so I get that. But the market's hot. I'm thinking 4,200. Where are you at?
Well, based upon what I've labor, parts, and such, I'm looking at $38.99.
$38.99. Deal. I'll make a deal with that. $38.99. Of course,
All
you.
right.
All right. I'm feeling pretty good about this. But when I get started, will you call me?
Of course.
Awesome. Awesome.
Give us a little bit of time. We'll get it sorted out and give you a holler, and we'll make it happen.
After we closed the deal, I asked him if we could take a quick look on the inside of his garage, and this place was packed with Volkswagens, Audis, Porsches, Ferraris, all to name a few, and these needed some detailing love, so I'm pretty excited to see what the future holds. As always, guys, if you like this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. That is massive for all content creators out there, and if you need to contact me, Larry@ammonyc.com. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.